Happy Mindfulness Monday, everyone. So glad that you're here today. Welcome. Please know that everyone will be muted for the duration of today's session. Feel free to use that chat function to communicate with us, share questions, thoughts, how you're doing, what's going well in life today, where you're joining from. I'd love to invite you to join us on camera. We do love to see each other in these mindful moments. So if you're comfortable with it and in a place to turn your camera on, I highly encourage you to join us on camera. Join us for our other PD Health at Home programs, Wellness Wednesdays, Fitness Fridays, expert briefings, and our Spanish language series, EP Salud en Casa. This week's Wellness Wednesday will be the first of our Coffee and Conversation series with the Foundation's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sneha Mantri, and guest expert, Dr. Matthew Burns. Join us for an open conversation focused on the movement symptoms of Parkinson's. In this session, Dr. Mantri and Dr. Burns will answer your questions about managing, treating, and living with movement symptoms. So bring your questions, bring your curiosity. Bring the conversation and don't forget your coffee or tea or water. Learn more about our upcoming virtual programs and register at parkinson.org/pdhealth. And today we welcome back Dr. Taylor Rush from the Cleveland Clinic. Taylor, thank you so much for guiding us towards mindfulness.
Thank you, Krista, and happy December, everyone. It's so weird to think that we are already at the end of this calendar year. It always goes by so incredibly fast, and so I'm very glad to be able to spend one more session with you guys before the holidays. And speaking of the holidays, that's a conversation I've been having a lot with people lately. And, the holidays bring up all kinds of things in terms of memories and family dynamics and also tradition. And many people find themselves reflecting on tradition, and they might be family rituals, they could be big traditions or small ones, but they're all these things that have shaped their sense of identity and connection. And tradition is incredibly powerful because it offers us something steady to return to, even when life keeps changing. Because if there's anything constant about life, it's change, right? And with that juxtaposition of tradition and change, it can result in a whole mix of emotions. There can be joy and gratitude. There can also be nostalgia and grief. And so I thought today we could explore a bit about how tradition can ground us, comfort us, and also remind us that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of a connective tissue, even as we adapt to change that is ever present. And so, for many of my patients who have Parkinson's disease, they do find that the holidays highlight changes that have occurred as a result of their Parkinson's. They notice changes in mobility as they're trying to maneuver in crowds. They notice change in their energy and stamina for how long they may be able to stay at social events. And traditions may feel harder to engage in, and that can create some sense of frustration and sadness. And also, what I find with the care partners that I work with is that oftentimes there's this pressure to keep everything the same. We got to keep everything status quo. And they're trying to hold everything together in such a way that there is this very strong emotional fatigue, as well as a longing for how things used to be. So, whether I'm working with a person with Parkinson's or a care partner, I often end up discussing mindfulness and how it helps us to hold both meaning and change with a sense of compassion. And so I think it's important to recognize that to be present with the things that are different now in terms of tradition and memory is that we're not giving up the past, we're not giving up memories, and we're not necessarily resisting the present. It's how do we reconnect with our own values? What are those things beneath tradition that matter to us? If it's connection, belonging, gratitude, how can we find those things with flexibility and kindness. And so, with tradition, it activates a whole bunch of senses and emotions. And I think, with mindfulness, we're here to feel and see and think about things in the moment. And so, how do we experience those sensations without judgment? And how do we acknowledge that mixed bag of emotion? And so, even when tradition shifts, the values beneath them can remain steady, and how we honor our traditions can evolve with flexibility and with compassion. So, I thought we would spend a little bit of time in a meditation that helps us to think about this in a little bit more detail. And so, as part of this particular exercise, in your mind's eye, I want you to come up with one meaningful tradition that you've had in your life. And that could be something from the past, it could be something that you do now, it could be an emerging tradition that has more recently developed. And I want you to focus on the feeling of that tradition rather than its exact form, because as we are discussing, those traditions may change in terms of how they look. Okay. So just giving you a little bit of a preview of that so you can start to think about it a little bit. But as you do, let's go ahead and get into our comfy position. So whether that's seated or reclined, however you're sitting, making sure that you're supported, making sure that the pelvis is supported, the legs are supported, spine is supported. Maybe noticing the breath starting to settle, be softening the edges of any tense muscles around the shoulders, jaw, back. And as you anchor to your body, slowly and gently notice the inhale and the exhale of your breath, feeling the cool air as you breathe in and feeling the warm air as you breathe out. Slowly spreading your awareness to how the breath feels as it fills your lungs, the rise and fall of your chest and abdomen. Just gently mapping out where your body has settled. Keeping in mind that this is never a perfect practice. It is just a practice. Thoughts may come and go. Judgments may intersect. But know that you can always come back to the sensation of the breath. As you continue to settle in, I want you to bring to mind that meaningful tradition. There's no need to perfectly visualize every component of it. I just want you to sense its presence and how it feels. And so, considering colors you associate with that tradition, perhaps lighting associated with it. where that tradition would tend to take place. Maybe any sounds associated with it. Perhaps it's quiet or boisterous, lots of talking and laughter, perhaps even music. And maybe any smells you associate with that tradition. Could be food, spices, smell of the air, any tastes that you may associate with that tradition, perhaps special meals, familiar treats. And lastly, any tactile sensations. Might be warm hugs, soft blankets, cool air. Just letting your senses guide you in unfolding this tradition, allowing yourself to really feel it. This that starts to become a little clearer. I want you to reflect on what this tradition represents. Could be connection, love, belonging, humor, peace, any emotions that begin to arise. Allow them to be there. You might feel gratitude, nostalgia, or perhaps even grief or sadness. Whatever comes up, greet them with compassion. As humans, we rarely feel just one emotion at a time, just like we rarely see one color at a time. It's typically a whole lot of mixed. Take a moment as you think about this tradition, how it may have changed, again, as life inevitably does. And I want you to consider putting one hand over your heart and silently saying to yourself, it's okay that things are changing. The meaning is still there. I can carry it forward in a new way. And as you sit with this sentiment, I want you to consider letting an intention form, something that we put on the radar for our mind, something we wish to acknowledge as we move through everyday life. It could be, I will honor what matters most. I will simplify my tradition with compassion. I will allow others to help. I will rest when I need to. I will allow tradition to evolve with compassion. Pick any intention that resonates for you and allow it to settle with 3 slow, deep breaths. When the time feels right, you can consider gently returning to our space here, noticing how you feel a steadiness or warmth or ache. And remember, again, even as traditions evolve, meaning can endure. And you are free to adapt with compassion. As you become more aware of your surroundings and us here, I want you to really consider carrying forward one feeling, one intention, one memory from this practice into the rest of your day today. Again, tradition is more than routine. It's more than just we do it because we always have. It's reminders of the things that matter most. Allow yourself to hold space for that and honor your connection in small ways. Really allow yourself to savor moments more slowly and let the heart of those traditions guide you rather than necessarily the form that they used to take. So, as always, I see eyes popping up here. Would love to hear about people's reflections. I think our chat is open again. Sometimes I think this is, again, to reflect on things like this can be an interesting journey. And again, it's not always one that just feels warm and fuzzy. Sometimes there's a lot of complex emotions that come into this, and it's okay to acknowledge that it wasn't all easy. But the point is that you connect to those things that are meaningful, and sometimes the things that are meaningful are also heavy. Okay, someone shared opening to joy is my intention. I love that. So again, to create an intention doesn't mean that it will automatically manifest, but it makes it more likely for us to see the opportunities. And I tell people it's kind of like if you've ever been shopping for a certain make and model of a car and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere, it's because you've primed your brain to see it. And so similarly, when we can prime our brain with an intention, it can make a difference in how well we can see it when it comes up. And someone said, celebrating life as much as possible. And Sue said, very relaxing. Marina said, being thankful for what I have. Yes. We talk a lot about gratitude this time of year. And to me, I'm a big proponent of gratitude being a year-round endeavor and taking stock of the things that we have that we may not always recognize or perhaps we take for granted. And so being able to have those moments of reflection on of what we're grateful for related to our lives, our loved ones, our traditions. And someone said, remind the important people why they are important. I really like that. There's a an exercise that Adam Grant has discussed. He's a psychologist who talks about writing a letter of appreciation to someone just for the sake of writing it, not because you also need to ask a favor or you need to remind them of something, but just to write them a letter of appreciation and what that does to our own mental health and well-being. And so really that is a double gift. It's a joining of past and present peaceful, taking some time to engage in self-care. My favorite word, self-care. I think often we all end up rolling our eyes at it and because we've heard it so much. However, it remains important because how we take care of ourselves has a huge impact on how we're able to care and love for others. So we have to take care of ourselves in order to truly be present for those that we care about. I said, continue to live my life, a little less anxiety, self-reassurance that I can manage what comes. Sometimes we just need a foothold, right? Sometimes it's not that we feel like everything is smooth sailing and all is well, but to at least know that we have a foothold of trust and security with ourselves and some of the things that we are able to do within our own lives. And someone said, thank you for reminding me that being flexible and getting help makes tradition possible. Yes. And again, because life changes, circumstances change, capacity changes. And so, tradition in its purest form is, the ways that we link to the people and the values that are important to us. So the traditions are just a root system, not a rule book, right? So how can we make that happen in different ways and be flexible with it? Compassion for my family, including blood ancestors. Yeah. And sometimes we even think of how things go well beyond who we are today and who is part of our lives today, but how we got here from generations ago. And someone mentioned that tradition associated with family can be a mixed bag in terms of memories, as it often is for people. I think we often feel so pressured that the holidays should be this joyous time where we're all happy and we're excited to see everyone that is in our lives. When I can tell you, from many, many conversations with people, that is not the case. And so, sometimes we feel like we can't bring up the mixed bag of things because we're supposed to be feeling good. And so, I think it's important to acknowledge those things. And someone said gratitude for relationships. Yes. Again, as humans, we're hardwired for connection. And sometimes those connections reach far and wide, and sometimes they are, tightly bound to a few people, and that's okay. But recognizing and valuing the connections that we have. Tradition, and someone shared their tradition of opening one present on Christmas Eve. And they are thankful for online shopping since in-person shopping is not as easy as it used to be. So another way of fulfilling a tradition in a slightly different way. And I think a lot of us appreciate that convenience these days and use it to our advantage. And but the tradition can remain somewhat stable. And so thank you for sharing these, you guys. These are fantastic. And again, just a way of, maybe approaching the holidays again because it's not easy, and there are a lot of things that can come up for folks as they try to navigate these times. And so being open, being connected to others and also yourself and recognizing the ways to honor the things that matter to you, I think is part of the recipe for getting through this and being able to appreciate what we can. So, thank you so much for having me today, as always. I certainly uh, have every intention of coming back in January, so I look forward to seeing everyone then, and I will hand it over to Krista for any last words.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for guiding us into remembering how traditions do change and they adapt as we do, as we evolve, and giving us permission to find some acceptance in the way that life changes, how we evolve. So I really appreciate that permission. Thank you all for joining us today. Really grateful for your presence. And we have 2 sessions left of 2025. So come back on December 22nd. Dr. Danielle Carnes will be joining us from Emory University, and I will be leading our traditional setting intentions for the new year on December 29th. So come hang out for our final 2 Mindfulness Monday sessions of the year, and we'll be welcoming Dr. Taylor Rush back in the new year. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We do have a comprehensive website with many resources that address just about everything. If you don't find something, let our helpline know, but I'm pretty confident it's on our website. So you can browse the website, parkinson.org, email our helpline or call our helpline. The information's there on the screen for you. Until our next session, may you find those precious moments of acceptance, of evolution, and continuing to find those pockets of ease. Until soon, my friends, be well.